Okay, so there's two versions of this video, and the first one is me walking the streets, and I need to watch it back, but I just have a feeling that it wasn't great. I don't know what my hair's doing either. It was a bit like, because it was just taxis going mental, like people walking past. So I figured I'd give it another go here. When I got back to the flat, then I was just saying in the first one, maybe I'll go on the balcony actually. Can you see me? Probably, maybe a benefit if you can't. That's not too bad, we'll take that. I figured out the stick's got like an extension thing on it as well. So I was just saying in the first one that it's been a weird, busy week, and I'm sort of like very glad we got to the end of it. Well, actually, I ended up having 2 beers at the end, which is very unlike me, but it was just, you know, one of those weeks where it felt like a bit warranted. Because we're busy, man, but it's sort of like we got everything at the middle of the process, middle to final. So we're sort of going for this like transition from like an old set of jobs to a new set of jobs, and it's never like works out perfectly that you've got this like perfect like sales cycle going on where you're always covered, and yeah, like really interesting stuff, but it's just so varied, right? Like we're on the verge of my first ever like deal in Japan, Tokyo. That would be like such a coup for us. It would be massive, and it's just like been such an eye opener because Japan's famous because it's a great recruitment market, but you charge like, I think I mentioned in one of the previous videos, like the UAE at the moment, Dubai, like the rates are sort of like 12 to 15% generous. Japan is like 30% as the norm, like higher. And it's because the candidates, it's in the culture there, they're so loyal, they don't move, they don't use LinkedIn, the standard of English isn't very high, and it's just in their culture. Like, you know, you get people that stay in the same job for like 30, 40 years. I think, you know, you always see those things, I don't know if it's true, but they're like about the companies where you can hire someone else to resign for you because it's like such a social stigma against it. But we've got someone with like this close. We've just negotiated the last point, and it was, the reason it was eye-opening is because we in Hong Kong, like, you know, an English person in Hong Kong was dealing with a client that was based in Malaysia and Singapore, a big agency, well known, but our point of contacts were there. We're dealing with a Chinese candidate who's lived in Japan for 30 years, and who's arguing like finer points about Japanese law. Not arguing, sorry, but like, you know, just making sure her contract's right. And it's like, fuck, like we're bouncing off between like 5 people to sort of like try and reach a resolution, and I think we got there, but it's just like, I think that's what makes it a little bit exciting as well. And then this goes on to where my brain's a bit fried, but like we've got a client that is based in Hong Kong, big client here, but they're expanding to the UAE, and I actually got it on because they saw that I'd moved from the UAE to like move up business here, so they're using my sort of UAE experience to help them fill a role there. And it's just that again, right? It's just like you're marrying this, like the Hong Kong, which is very like, I say bureaucratic, right? It's very organised, it's very like lots of paperwork, they're very methodical. With this UAE culture, there's just like quite like, you know, I always say the famous one is like inshallah, God willing, like it's very I wouldn't say lackadaisical, but it's a lot more laid back and a lot less structure to it. So just marrying that together, trying to like achieve like a set outcome and trying to educate that candidate as well, like this is the process you're entering into. It's not going to be like, you know, some of the processes you've probably had in Dubai. And then on top of that, this is the first time this has happened to me this year. And it's one of those, like, you can prepare for it as much as possible. But obviously, look, I've done the job close to a decade, so I'm quite good at judging character. But we had this candidate, actually, I'm going to preface this by saying I wasn't handling her directly. So, but she was due for an interview with a client we know, due at 12 o'clock, prepped her at 11. She was like, yeah, I'll give you a call after, let you know how it went. We chased her up after. And then the client is, the hiring manager's in Singapore, but the head of talent's in the UK. So when the UK person came online, they were like, you know, they never showed up. We were like, what? Like, you know, it's so rare for that to happen, like out here, and just a bit weird to be honest. Like, especially when you spoke to them before, and they were like, you know, no red flags. They approached us about the role. So I think you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt maybe, and just say, like, you know, maybe something came up, or maybe something, you know, happened that I think it's better than flying off the handle. But I don't know, a bit of a strange one. But yeah, so like, you're doing all this, and like, you're just so many like countries and cultures, and one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given, actually I saw a great thing, and it was like, what piece of advice would you give the younger generation? And for me, if anyone's interested, mine would be, if I could speak to a room full of 20-year-olds, 18, 20-year-olds, I would say, find a job or a career or calling that lets you be as international as possible. And what I mean by that is not a job that, like, you know, find a job that lets you travel around the world. Like, I've been very lucky in my job to travel lots through work and then through the location I'm based in. But finding a job that allows you to, like, work internationally, like, take in, like, different opinions, because it has been the most eye-opening thing. And the person I was when I left the UK, I'm not going to go into, like, you know, I do think, like, very heavily, especially, like, the Middle East, I won't go into it too much to get too controversial, but China for sure, your perception of these places is very much shaped by the UK media, or the Western media, sorry, not limited to the UK. And then when you go out there and you see these places, it's so different. And that piece of advice that I was once given about being as international as possible, meaning you can hold your own in any room, is so true, because you just have such a depth of opinion, of cultures and perception that you've been exposed to, that if you put yourself in any room, like, listen, I'm not the sharpest tool in this box by any stretch of the imagination, but because of that, you know, it's opened so many doors for me. Like, even out here, like, I met a client when I was in Singapore a few weeks ago, where she was talking about how she's got to go to Saudi, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I've been there about 11 times, so that opens up a door. And, like, if I hadn't have moved to the Middle East first and had that experience there, then I wouldn't have probably got along as well with her as I did. And it just gets you, like, a newfound level of respect, and just working with people from around the world. And I think my big takeaway is that it's quite a common human experience, right? Like, us and them. It goes with everything from, like, sports, like, you know, Spurs Arsenal, to countries, to, like, you know, England versus somewhere else, and for everything, like politics now, left and right. Like, it's this huge, like, everything we do or are involved in is categorized into, I don't even know if it's intentional, I think it just happens, right? Like, this us and them. We live in such a polarized society. Like, you know, your ex is probably, social feeds are very, like, meditated towards your, like, political views or your social views. So you live in this echo chamber where, again, like, it becomes us and them, right? Like, because you're only taking the views, and we're all guilty of it. And I think largely algorithm driven as well, because that's the content you take in. But the human experience is a lot more, the human experience is a lot narrower than I think we give it credit to, and that goes everywhere. And the reason I say that, and the big epiphany I had, was when I went to, where did I go? I went to Guangzhou, I don't know how to correctly pronounce it, but in China. And I'd be honest, never heard of the place really. Like, I couldn't tell you anything there. Absolutely stunning, like, ridiculous, right? And it's a shame that China is so insular, because it is a phenomenal city. 2 hours on the train from Hong Kong. And we were out walking through this park, and it was like, it's not at all, like, you can get by if you don't speak Chinese, but it's not, like, geared up for non-Chinese speakers really, right? And we're walking through this park, and all you saw, by the way, all the shops there, it was like Lululemon, Shake Shack, bizarre, but, you know, it's grandparents looking after their grandchildren, like, you know, mums shouting at their kids, and, you know, little boys playing football, whatever, like, and it's just like, you're looking at them and you're like, they're no different to me, right? Just because I can't converse with them, they're no different to me. And we were walking through, and there was a few people obviously staring, because I don't think, like, you know, you get too many, you know, incredibly attractive white men walking through. But this guy steamed over, and I'm thinking, my initial reaction again was just like, oh fuck, he's here to give us a bit of trouble, or I don't know, something like that. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe just a bloke coming up to you in a foreign country, you sort of got your guard up, right? And he came over. He was with a group of his mates. He was probably about, like, early 20s, but in my head I was sort of like, oh, here we go, what's going to happen? And he came over and he was like, welcome to China, shook our hands. I was with my girlfriend, and he was just like the friendliest guy, and he just wanted to practice his English. And it's like that everywhere you go, right? Like, you know, I've been very lucky. I travelled to one of the most eye-opening places and brilliant places I've been is New Delhi. One of the best cities I've ever been to. It was just phenomenal, a blend of history, like, incredible pace of living. And then I went to Mumbai a year later based off that New Delhi trip, and I hated Mumbai. So if I'd only ever been to Mumbai, I would have said I don't like India. Like, or, you know, I wouldn't recommend going to India to someone. But New Delhi was fantastic. So you have to have this, like, broad range of opinions and not shut yourself off based on isolated experiences. And I just think it makes the world and your perception of it such a fuller place. It makes you so much more open to new things, so much more receptive to new ideas and new ways of thinking, and that is just a huge bonus. And that, you know, is I've got more through travel and spending money on travel than my university education, which I think was a complete waste of time actually in retrospect. So There you go, 10-minute video. That's definitely longer than the last one, about why you should be internationally minded, why it's so good, and how it's opened up experiences where, you know, if I hadn't have had that softer experiences of travel, that open up those mid-range experiences of travel to those sort of crazier places you go to, like, I don't know, I put in that bracket, like places that people don't go to every week, right? Like Taipei, went there on my own, New Delhi, went there on my own. That was like, you know, building those stepping blocks that allows me to come out and now own a business, have a girlfriend here that's lived here for 7-8 years, you know, have friends here that have lived here their whole lives, and yeah, live in Hong Kong. There you go. I don't know if that was any good. You might have clicked off 15 minutes ago. It might just be me talking to myself at this point, but I'll leave it there. Have a good weekend.